Okay, in this part I'll be looking at sentence construction, the second part, but once again because the file is quite large I've divided it into two, so this is part one of sentence construction 2. Inversion. Inversion, you already know, we use with simple questions using to be or have got. In this case I have a sentence, he is a tourist. To make a question here, I simply invert the subject and the verb to be, so it becomes, is he a tourist? Also, we change our voice as we're speaking, so I would say, is he a tourist? In this case, I'm using have got, so he has got a watch, the abbreviated form, he's got a watch. Inverting that becomes, has he got a watch? Again, you change your voice as you're speaking, so I would say, has he got a watch? Where we have an auxiliary verb such as be, have, or the modal, then we invert the subject and the auxiliary, again, as you already know. James is working. Here we have the present continuous. To make a question for that, we invert the auxiliary to be and the subject James in this case. It becomes, is James working? Second example here, you have finished your work. In this case, have finished is the present perfect. We invert the auxiliary and the subject becomes, have you finished your work? Modal verbs, again, you invert. So in this case, I'm using can as the modal verb. They can come tomorrow. Inverting that, forming a question, I invert the modal, in this case can, and the subject they becomes, can they come tomorrow? Otherwise, you need to use the auxiliary do, does, or did for the past simple. We get a discount. Affirmative phrase. I need to use the auxiliary do first, then the subject we plus the verb get. So it becomes, do we get a discount? Looking at the past, the Normans conquered England. This is the past simple. Exactly the same construction, but in this case I'm using the auxiliary in the past simple because the tense is the past simple. It becomes, did the Normans conquer England? You'll also find inversion of subject and auxiliary in formal language. You'll find this perhaps in notices or maybe in formal letters, in formal situations, maybe in a courthouse, for example. Should you need further assistance, please contact our call centre. You may see this on a flyer or you may see this on a notice if you've bought something. What I'm saying is, should you need further assistance, if you need further assistance. It's a formal way I've inverted should and the subject. Another example here, were I young, I wouldn't hesitate for a moment. What I'm saying is, if I were young, if I was in your position perhaps. Another example, had the authorities been informed, this wouldn't have happened. What I'm saying is, if the authorities had been informed, this wouldn't have happened. Because it's a formal situation, I've inverted. Inversion we use after negative adverbs. In this case here, if the sentence does not contain auxiliary, then we do need to use do, does, or did. Only then did I realise my watch had disappeared. I've inverted because only is a negative adverb. What I'm basically saying is I realised only then that my watch had disappeared. Using the inversion also adds emphasis to the fact, perhaps, that I lost my watch and I can't remember when or where it disappeared. Inversion we use after these negative adverbs: hardly, scarcely, nowhere, rarely, in no circumstances, on no account, etc. We also use inversion with negative adverbs in literature, often to emphasize a phrase to make it more important. We use it often with go, come, stand, or lie to emphasize the subject. In this case, we have there, at the bottom of the cave, lay the fabulous treasure. Okay, and that finishes part 1 of sentence construction 2.